Hello, viewers. Today we have with us Dr. Pariksith Singh. He's a medical doctor and a spiritual healer, a poet and a philosopher, a creative person and an entrepreneur. And he's all that and much more than that. And he's deeply impacted by the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. And he's come out now with his sixth book on them. So, welcome, Dr. Singh.
Namaste. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me here.
Thank you so much. Pleasure is all ours, sir. So, sir, this is your sixth book on Aurobindo.
The original one's more poetry. This is in prose. This is the second one on Sri Aurobindo.
Okay. So, what explains your deep interest in him?
A lot of things because he's when I was very young, I got introduced to him at the
Hmm.
age of 18, and I was
Yeah.
deeply impressed by what he did for our country, how much
Hmm.
he sacrificed,
Hmm.
and the vision of Swarajya which he brought to our freedom struggle for the first time with great clarity. That
Hmm.
was, of course, very impactful for me, and I was very young and very idealistic at that time, but it touched me deeply. And then the spiritual philosophy, the poetry, I was very interested in English literature, and he kind of gave a rebirth to Indian literature in the early 20th century. So, with the love of literature, poetry, he was very appealing to me. And then the yoga that I learned to practice, little letters that he used to write to his disciples, that made a lot of sense to me because he would take care of their difficulties, but most of these difficulties were mine too. So I could relate to these letters. So his letters on yoga had a deep impact on me. So it's been kind of a growth. He's a teacher to me, as you know, in our Indian tradition, a spiritual guru is like your father and bigger than, for you, he is greater than, as they say, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu. So that's how Sri Aurobindo deeply impacted me.
So, who introduced you to him? Like, how did you get introduced to him?
It was my friend who's actually, I met him in Jaipur while I was in medical school, and he was also beginning his spiritual journey. And he was originally more, influenced by Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa. And then while his studies, because he was an English literary major, he got introduced to Sri Aurobindo, and he uh, brought, uh, you know, brought me to the ashram. He said, "Let's go to the ashram." I was 18 years old. I went to Delhi Sri Aurobindo ashram, and then I was just fell in love with everything that he and mother taught and tried to do for our country.
But isn't 18 a very young age to enter into spiritualism and philosophy? Most youngsters, like you were in college, and most young children, young students are in their world of their own, rather than the philosophy and spirituality.
That's true. I think I was a little more probably more influenced because there was a lot of idealism. I became a doctor because I wanted to help and try to heal people. I was deeply in wanted to change things in our country, and a lot of, you've seen how what our country has been through in the last 30, 40 years, which is my life also. And so it was a time when I think idealism met with a deep hunger. I always had a deep aspiration and a hunger to know what are these complex problems, and how do you resolve them. And so Sri Aurobindo gave me the answers, and then I followed him. And as I developed over the years, of course, I was very immature then, and I'm still learning. It's a constant learning, but it kind of gave me an approach. How should we approach life and darshan and Indian adhyatma? And that has helped me through all the difficulties as a doctor, because, as you know, being a doctor is not is very challenging. A lot of failures, a lot of stress, and you're kind of feel like you only have limited ability to help someone, and yet you try, knowing that a lot of our patients are dying. So to be able to cope with it, I think he gave me that approach, how to be quiet, how to be still, how to be surrendered, and be open to, the divine will that works through all of us. And so that gives me a lot of peace of mind to be able to fail and still keep going on, and hopefully we help one or two patients here and there, and that is a very joyous occasion.
Hmm. So, but most of the doctors, for most of the doctors, it's spirituality and science are like poles apart. They won't
Yeah.
believe. They believe in like facts. Science is fact based. That we all know, and
Ji,
doctors
ji.
wouldn't get into spirituality, something
That,
which you can't explain.
that's true, but see, our body's healing in our traditional Ayurveda, it was never separate from our darshana. Like even in Rigved, Ayurveda came from Rigved, and all our darshan came from Rigved. The healing of the body is totally dependent on how your mind is, how your emotions are, how your prana is, and then eventually, is your body sensitive enough to what is happening? Can it heal itself? Can we augment the process of self healing? Because the body, even though we feel it's a complete system, it's impacted by so many things. And then if you understand that there are deeper movements in life, what swasthya really means, then it is not science versus adhyatma anymore. And even modern science is coming to that. If you see all the new changes that are coming in, even look at
Yeah,
quantum physics, look at modern psychology,
yeah,
biology, the things that we are looking at, we are seeing a far more complex interaction between things than a very cut and dry, analytical Western scientific approach. And there's a lot to be said for the wisdom in Ayurveda, the healing. Deepak Chopra tried to bring the two together, Western medicine and science and healing through sound and through meditation. And a lot of those attempts are being made. So I think there is, a lot more work needs to be done, because science is eventually, in a deeper sense, a search for truth, which is adhyatma. So I never saw any contradiction. Most
okay.
doctors don't do it because we are so
Ah,
stressed in medical school, and then we get into this cycle of a very crazy hectic life, and then somehow greed and ambition comes in, and then we forget all the essences of life. So I think it's good for doctors to reconnect with their inner healer and the healer within that each individual, each patient has. And I think we can do a better job as a doctor if we understand the truth behind, the adhyatmic satya behind our life.
okay. So when you treat your patients, I'm digressing a little from the
Ji, ji.
book. So when you treat your patients, do you practice healing also with them? How do you approach a disease?
Very quietly, one has to be very open to ideas. When a mind has to be quiet, you have to be still, and then we have to be surrendered, and know that you're just an instrument. If that you can keep that awareness, things help a lot. If you can be smiling, a good gesture, you have kindness, gentleness, if you can connect with the person on a deeper level than just a doctor patient transactional experience, then you can start improving their lives. And if you're really feeling, have empathy, compassion for them, then you can bring that prana in that engagement, and that itself is a good healing. Now, I know doctors who do pranic healing directly. They try
Okay.
to change the patient's prana, and which is our traditional old way of treating. In my traditional practice, I'm very quiet about it. I don't want, if patients are coming here for a clear cut Western treatment, then I just give them what needs to be done, but as deep as possible, using all the, and because when you talk to a patient with compassion and love, and you engage with them, that itself is exchange of prana, even though we
Yeah.
don't know it. When we talk to a person, there's an exchange of prana. If we can keep it very superficial, or we can go deep. And if we go deep and we are quiet and we are gentle with them, then something starts happening in them. And if you've
Okay.
read, there's a very beautiful book there's an Hawaiian technique called Ho'oponopono,
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
the healer treats himself first before trying to treat the patient, and that itself helps the patient. So we are together, no longer as us and them. We are in that healing process. Both are one unit. And if that is the approach that I try to take.
And patients welcome that,
It's
particularly in West. Like, are
yes.
they
So
open to
human
it?
beings appreciate kindness, loving gestures, smiles. compassion, anywhere. I don't talk about the theory. I just go into the practice and
Okay.
make it. Sometimes we laugh, we have fun, we talk about family, we talk about children, we talk about positive things that touch them, and that creates more of an impact than just writing a prescription or
Okay.
just ordering a test.
Okay.
So that has helped a lot.
Okay. So, sir, in this book, you have compared Sri Aurobindo with Krishna.
G.
Yeah, I want you to like talk about it. How do you do that? Why do
So
you do that?
G. So, as let's talk first, just as philosophers, Sri Krishna, of course, was a multi-dimensional personality and being. So, I don't. I'm just going to talk about Sri Krishna as a philosopher, the Sri Krishna in the Gita, and then Sri Aurobindo in the Life Divine and his whole life as an integral Purna Yogi, right? He emphasized Purna Yoga. So Sri Krishna, with his genius, he brought all the diverse paths together, whether it was Sankhya, whether it was yoga, karma, jnana, bhakti, Vaishnav, Pantha. He brought them all, and is Purushottam above everything. Multiple Purushas of Sankhya, everything gets absorbed in Purushottama. Karma Yoga, he says, tells Arjun, work hard. If you have to fight, you fight. Do your karma, follow your dharma. But he also gives him knowledge. So Gyan Yoga is not put down, and Bhakti is not put down. So all those paths that were diverging, he brings them all, makes them all one. That's the integral approach. That is our traditional Vedantic Vedic approach. In the Veda, our rishis emphasized everything, working, having jnana, the chit, purifying itself, elevating to the Satyam Ritam Brihat, which is what they described the higher consciousness as, but purifying oneself, purifying the Vayu, invoking Indra, which is your higher mind, getting Soma. Soma is the joy of being, bringing Som in touch with your Vayu, which is your prana, and transforming it, and doing the work and becoming, developing mastery over oneself, Swarajya. But our rishis were not escapists. They said not only Swarajya, but Samrajya. Because until you do not have mastery over yourself, you cannot have mastery over the world. So Swarajya and Samrajya both went together. So our rishis absorbed everything. There was no part of human life that they rejected. They not didn't even reject the human body. They said even Anna Brahma, they said, do not reject it. So Sri Krishna took all these lines in a Vedantic approach and brought all these aspects in his vast vision in the Gita. And he takes the triune path that we call karma, jnana, bhakti. Everything is one. There is no separation. You grow in bhakti, that means you will gain jnana. You do
Yeah.
karma, surrender bhava with a bhava of offering it samarpan to the divine within or to Sri Krishna, that will improve your knowledge and that will improve your bhakti. So each will augment the other. Now let's talk about Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo himself, in a beautiful line, says, "All life is yoga." So unfortunately, after Sri Krishna, we went through different paths, and then we kind of reached a point where we started rejecting the world. The world became Maya, illusion. Now the Veda doesn't see the world as an illusion. The Veda accepts
Okay.
reality of the world. This too is a manifestation of the Sat and Rhythm. This too is a
Okay.
manifestation of the Brihat. So it doesn't reject it. And I don't think Shankaracharya ever said that this is falsehood. We misunderstood him. Brahman
Okay.
Satyam Jagan Mithya, Jiva Brahmanav Na Paraha. Jeev and Brahman, there is no separation. When we see that as a separate world, that is Mithya. That is how I understand Adi Shankaracharya. But we kind
Okay.
of, Indians got into this Mayavad. Everything is Maya, reject it, into sannyas and leave it. So what happened? Our best minds, best people started shunning this life, and our life became weaker. We as a nation became weaker, even though our yogis did a lot of work, a lot of sannyasis did great sacrifice, and at some point that is necessary. But Sri Aurobindo brought it again, and before him Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna showed that all paths are one. Sri Ramakrishna lived that example in his life, whether working for Ram, Sri Krishna, whether Vedanta, even Tantra, and even Islam and even Christianity. He brought them all, and every experience took him back
mm,
to the
mm,
divine Kali. He worshipped Kali, and then his teacher, Vedanti teacher, laughed at him, but realized eventually that Sri Ramakrishna lived that reality, and there is no separation between the
mm,
truth of the Vedanta and the truth of Tantra. Sri
mm,
Aurobindo built on it. He developed it, and when he said all life is yoga, and then he went back to the Upanishads and the Gita to show how our great rishis and then Sri Krishna took that approach, and that's why he called his yoga Purna Yoga, in which he takes
mhm,
bhakti, gyan, karma. He takes Advaita Vedanta. He takes all the learnings that we get, whether it's from Shankaracharya, whether it's from Ramanujacharya. He brings them all together as one. And then he also brings Tantra into it. Sri
mhm,
Krishna, of course, does not talk about Tantra. It was not as important in that at that time as a separate path, although it is always there in the Vedic literature. There are hints towards it, but Sri Aurobindo brings even Tantra, a higher Tantra, where the
mhm,
worship of the Divine Mother Shakti is the path towards integral yoga. So the approach
mm,
as a philosopher both embraced all the paths, showed
mm,
the essential unity of all these paths, and
mm,
showed us do not reject any part of the body. Even the
mm,
physical body, Sri Aurobindo says, you need to transform it, you need to divinize it. So the path that Sri Aurobindo shows is find your psychic being, or what we call the Chaitya Purush in the Veda, and then
mm,
become spiritual, finding the Atman and discovering that in everything you do, and then
mm,
ascending upwards, but also invoking the higher power of the Satyamritam Brihat that the Veda talks about, what he
mm,
calls the supermind, to transform us. And this is
mm,
so he's a part of the lineage of that we had for the last, say, 8, 10,000 years when the Vedas came. We don't know when the Vedas came. Um, at least 4,000 years, but I think much more than that. And he continues in that path and reinforces the integral approach, the Purna Vedanta. So that's
mm.
why I've compared Sri Krishna with Sri Aurobindo.
It's basically like you one has to live uh, all the aspects of the life and
That's
not shun any aspect, and
that's right.
live the physical life, and then in the same day, like you do spiritualism, you do bhakti yoga also, you do karma yoga also, you do gyan yoga. That is what you mean, no?
That is our life, no? We are not
Yeah,
separate aspects. We are a
yeah,
universe in ourselves. And so they
yeah,
say, you are the universe, embrace
yeah.
everything, but
Hmm,
surrender it to the divine within. And
hmm,
that's how it becomes all unified. Because yoga means what? To add.
hmm.
So you're
Yeah,
bringing all these aspects and they become one in that true
true,
unity of the divine.
true. True, true. And you've also called him the father, like true father of Swarajya.
That's right.
Not many people would be happy with it.
I won't talk about the politics, but let's go to the
Ah,
history, right? And
hmm,
we just talk history. So
hmm,
originally, in the last original Swarajya, of course, in time of the Veda, and that's an old history. But in the last 200 years, it was
hmm,
Swami Dayanand who really said Swarajya must happen. But Swami Dayanand, one thing is he died, early because he was given a poison by, the in Jodhpur, and then he died in Ajmer, and then it
hmm,
was taken up by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Swami Vivekananda also talked about the spiritual Swarajya, but Bal Gangadhar Tilak said it. Swarajya is my Janam Siddhadikar. मैं लेके रहूंगा. I'm going to take
hmm,
it. Even Bipin Chandra Pal had come, Lala Lajpat Rai, these great people had come. But these were considered to be extremists. Think about it. These were Ugravadi. The people who were talking about Swarajya were
hmm,
considered Ugravadi. 1885 Indian National Congress was formed by A.O. Hume and his other people, and all they did was send petitions to the British government. Please listen to this, do this for us, and they threw them away. They didn't care.
hmm,
Because who were they? They were nobodies. The British,
hmm,
at that time, the British were powerful. In the year 1900, it was Pan Britannica. No one could ever think of dislodging the UK. It was a hyperpower. 25% of the land of the globe was controlled by them. 37% to 45% of GDP was controlled by them. No one could even dream of dislodging Britain from India. But we needed some people who were idealists, who were dreamers, and who were a little crazy because they loved their land too much. And so, if you see in that 4 years, Sri Aurobindo nailed it. He pushed it down our consciousness that Swarajya is the fundamental thing that we all have to have. We cannot realize our true potential as a nation, our genius, our dharma. We cannot fulfill it if we are not free. And he brought it out with force, with logic, insistently, consistently. You look at his writings on Bhavani Bharati, you look at his writings in Vande Mataram, and then most importantly, he brought our dharma back to us. We had forgotten what our Upanishads meant, what Gita meant, what the Vedas meant. Yes, people talked about it, but to give a formal, precise explanation after continuing the lineage of Swami Vivekananda, and then the most beautiful thing, bringing our dharma and nationalism as one. So,
Together.
Uttar speech, he says, our nationalism is Sanatan Dharma. If you live Sanatan Dharma, you're a nationalist. The day you forget Sanatan Dharma, India will be destroyed, India will disappear. And as long as Sanatan Dharma is there, India is alive. Now, look at how beautifully, how brilliantly he has done. He has taken that nationalism, which for people is a narrow thing, he has widened it in our
Broaden.
Vedic approach. We are universal, but we will live the Sanatan Dharma, and when we live it, we are nationalists. So, to go and realize our true dharma and that we are following our dharma when we love our land and we fight for it and we lay down our life, that was an important thing. Now remember, this is before Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi came
Yeah.
much later. In
Much later.
1905, 1907, Surat Congress was split because Sri Aurobindo was the president of the Ugravadi. These are Ugravadis. Look at, these are nationalists. They were the reasonable people. They were not
Yeah.
unreasonable. It is the INC that was unreasonable at that time. But they were subservient. The INC was subservient. But 1929, Congress adopted all three things that he said. Swarajya is our goal. We will boycott British goods and we will become Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar, I hope it rings a bell somewhere. Now we talk
Yeah. Now we are
last few
talking
years
about
we were
it.
talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Who brought
Yeah.
this? So
Yeah.
it was a sustained program, and he worked with great people. He worked with Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He always called him his leader, political leader. He worked with Bipin Chandra Pal. They worked on the same journal, Vande Mataram, and Lala Lajpat Rai. They all had utmost respect for him, and he brought them together and he kept them together. But he was not afraid to split Congress to emphasize that we have to become free. And it was not a sustained will at that time. The masses in India did not have a will for Swaraj. Gandhiji came much later, but Gandhiji took his agenda and brought it to the masses. But the agenda of Swaraj, Atmanirbharta, and boycotting British goods and having our own education system, this all agenda came from Sri Aurobindo, and this is a historical fact. Now, when you people can say no, Mahatma Gandhi is the father, I have no problems, but we have to realize the contribution that Sri Aurobindo made. And actually, if you remember, it was Sri Aurobindo who gave the ideal of Bhavani Bharati, and that Samiti, Anushilan Samiti, was actually influenced by him. Jatin,
Right.
the Bagha Jatin was influenced by him. It was under his influence that Rash Bihari Bose tried. There was a parallel movement of people. It was
Yeah.
just the peaceful, and I shouldn't call peaceful. It was just not the moderate faction. Ras Bihari Bose, who influenced Subhash Chandra Bose, who brought Subhash Chandra Bose to Japan, the Gadar party, these all were deeply influenced by him. And if you remember, eventually during World War II, after World War II, the British finally gave up on India, not because of Gandhiji, but because
True.
there was a rebellion in the Navy and the Air Force, 1946. That's when they
True.
realized they could not control India anymore. So you needed that strength and say, we are going to be free. And Mahatma Gandhi was not a wimp. He gave, sacrificed a lot. We appreciate him. We love Mahatma Gandhi for
mm,
what he did,
mm,
but the he original emphasis on Swarajya to drill it down in our consciousness was done
mm,
by Sri Aurobindo and, of course, Lal Bal Pal and other great leaders of that time. It was
mm.
obviously it is never one person; it is a whole nation fighting for the
Yeah,
cause.
yeah.
But
But
that's why I call him the father
mm.
of
but
at least Swaraj.
yeah, but all these people were termed as Ugravadi, as you said, extremists, and that is why their contribution when down was not much talked about,
Today,
right?
if you say I want to be free, I am free, and I
Hmm.
say that's Ugravad.
Hmm.
How can that be Ugravad? You are being
Yeah, true.
reasonable. You are the moderate person that I want to be
Yeah,
free. If you say
yeah,
I don't want to be free and let the British run my
uh,
life, that is
yeah,
an extremism of extreme
yeah,
servility.
yeah,
So it's
true.
how we twisted, narratives are created, and
Hmm.
we don't need to go into how and why
Hmm.
narratives are created like that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there's nothing can be more reasonable than saying I and my people are going to be free, and I'm willing to
Free.
lay down my life for it. And if
True.
needed, I will take lives for it because you are
Hmm.
suppressing millions of people. You're
Hmm.
destroying millions of people. And they did.
Hmm.
How much damage did the British rule do to us?
Hmm.
So we need
Yeah.
people to fight and stand for the truth, like Arjuna
Hmm.
did. Arjuna was
Hmm.
asked to fight. He did
Yeah.
not say, Sri Krishna didn't say, okay, go to the jungle and just,
Yeah.
do sannyas. He said, fight
Uh,
for your dharma. So,
Dharma, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Following the dharma is of utmost important.
G,
Your duty at the moment.
G, G,
So, sir, Aurobindo was relevant at that time, is relevant today,
G,
right? His teachings.
G.
So, since you were hugely impressed by him, and rightly so, do you ever try to propagate his teachings? Like books is fine, you're writing, but do you ever give talks and all on him,
G, G.
so as to bring his relevance in today's time?
G. So we have discussed him over the last few years. I talk about him. I talk about his what he did in our uh, political world, in our educational sphere, what he has done in our
Hmm.
spiritual and literary rebirth, the importance of, say, an approach, a futuristic approach for India, his five dreams. Auroville, look in Pondicherry, what his dream was to have a bigger, to we see ourselves as potentially divine creatures who need to find our truest possibilities. And then we have a universal view and create sanghas of people who will live a spiritual life, who will help each other. And so the world his warnings are now being heard by the world. Look at the mechanization that is happening, the artificial machines that are taking over. Our consciousness is getting suppressed. Our children are spending more time on smartphones. Consciousness is not growing. And that was his message constantly, is we have to focus on our chit. If our awareness is growing, then we can do more things for earth and for ourselves and for the future. And he was a futurist, but he also was firmly grounded in reality. So I see him more and more relevant to our life, more relevant today than even 75 years ago. What he said about India is coming more and more true. He said India will become a nation that will lead the world. He even called India as the Vishwaguru. But India will
Hmm.
become a Vishwaguru when we realize our Adhyatma, our truest, highest possibility and the divinity within us, and we start living it. He said Asia will rise. We are seeing that. China, Japan, Indonesia. You're seeing Asian countries. You're seeing India coming up, whether it's financially or whether it's politically, whether it's militarily, whether it's as a leader defining the paradigm of the future, and you're seeing that happen. He predicted that European Union will become one entity. It has happened, and it is happening, with minor uh, deviations like Brexit happened, but his vision was right. He saw America as doing a great work for humanity, but obviously it was on a spiritual basis. He envisaged a future where humanity itself will come together in a higher consciousness with for each other, with more compassion, with deeper love for each other, and do things together. That is a dream that I think we should all meditate on and realize. So I do talk about whenever I can, because I see him as one of our great rishis of modern time, one of the father figures. And again, I don't want to call him father of modern India, but at least he's the pitamaha, you can call it, or at least he's one of the great leaders that India has. We need to realize what he did, how much he sacrificed for us, how much he gave for us. All of these, great leaders, they did not care about their life, but they gave everything to their country, the mother they loved. And I think we need to somehow connect to that, because that is our opening into being able to serve our people, our land, and all humanity.
Yeah. So you've written in your book that every human can rise to devas, to the level of devas.
Beyond, in the Rig Veda,
I want
we
you
talk
to.
about the Ribhus, right? The
Hmm.
Ribhus, the Angirasas.
Hmm.
Angirasas are who? Angirasas are the original rishis who found their potential and rose above the level of the devas. And the Rig Veda says they help us with our spiritual journey even now. So, and that is so. The Rig Veda had a tremendous respect for the older rishis, for those who created the path. So, second Rik of Mandal 1, Sukta 1, uh, it is beautifully described. Agnihi Purvebhi Rishibhi Ringyo uh, Nutanairuta. So, the older rishis loved Agni, and the newer rishis also love it as much as the older rishis. And they have tremendous love. And Agni is not a fire outside. Agni is your tejas, your pure divinity within, the divine will working through you.
The
That's
god flame,
Agni, right?
the
Agni,
the
right?
god
Divine.
flame.
That's right. So it's the divinity within us, and so that's what they show that as a symbol. So that older knowledge, the tremendous knowledge, respect for the older rishis, because the older rishis were not just physical entities; that they're gone, they're dead. By elevating their consciousness, they can rise before the devas. Now we need to understand what the devas are, right? Devas are beings of light. Divya. Div means to shine. That's what devas are. Or Dyaus. Dyaus is the antariksh, the sky in Rig Veda. So Dyaus, devas who reside in that. But Rig Veda describes levels higher than the Dyaus. It's the Satyam
Okay.
Ritam Brihat, they describe it, which is a level higher. That is where you have complete awareness of Sat. Sat is that which will never change. Ritam is the manifestation of the Sat. And Ritam, you will see in even Sanskrit and Hindi nowadays, we use the word Ritu. Yeah, there's an
Yeah.
order to how Sat manifests. That's the rhythm. Rhythm, you can describe it in English if you want an equivalent, is right. And then Brihat is the vast. That level of consciousness is above Dyaus. That's above Indra. That's above all the devas. Devas are not imagination; these are powers of universe. The Indra is your higher mind. Agni is your tejas. Soma is the joy within, the anand of being. Right.
So
The Vayu.
devas were the people once living on earth.
Uh, they are always acting on us. They take human forms. They work through us. Even right now, I'm breathing. Right. They call it Vayu. Right. So I'm Vayu is prana.
Vayu Dev.
I'm
Yeah.
taking it all the time. So they are here,
Yeah.
they're helping us. We don't see them as opposition, unlike, say, Greek mythology. The human and the divine are not separate, they're not fighting. They're partners in the yajna. In the yajna, we invoke the higher powers to help make Agni stronger, to make the Som appear, which is the Anand, so that Indra can get rid of all our difficulties. This is only a symbolic way to represent the Adhyatmic journey called
Yeah.
Advarya. That's the term that is used. And
Yeah.
this is yoga. Yoga, yajna has 15 meanings according to science. And one of the meanings, which is probably the most important, is Vishnu. Yajna
Okay.
is Vishnu. So you're pouring everything into the divine. And we say something very powerful, which I always love. Idam na mamaha. This is not mine. So what you're giving, you're returning it back to the divine. Yajna
Okay.
also means yoga, and yajna also means dharma. But these are very deep meanings.
Yeah.
But this is, if we do that yoga, our awareness goes right to Satchidanand, which is our truth, right? Tat Tvam Asi. Our
Yeah.
reality is not a simple human being caught in time and space and causation. We are that Satchidananda, that Paramatma is our Atman too. And so we have the whole universe within in seed. So all powers are inferior to Satchidananda. That is represented in the Rig Veda as the Surya. Surya is energy, Surya is the creators, the Savitur,
Yeah.
Pushana. So we have Agni is the same as Surya. Saurya Agni and Agni, it's the same Agni. We just discover it. The moment we discover it and we get rid of all our impurities, we purify ourselves, we can ascend higher than Indra. There's a beautiful conversation in the Veda, Agastya and Indra. And Agastya is a great rishi, and he's trying to climb up in awareness, and Indra is blocking him. And he says, Indra, you're my friend. Why are you blocking me? This is a conversation. Indra says, no, I'm not blocking you. I'm your brother. But come to me. Indra is your own higher mind. So you use the higher mind to ascend higher. And the devas are assisting you in rising to a higher consciousness. So at least that's how the Rig Vedic approach is, that we can ascend higher than the devas.
So yeah, sometime back in the beginning of the interview, you talked about pranic healing. So
Yes.
that is what I know is that is one kind of spiritual healing that healers do, and there are many other kinds of
Ji,
healings also.
ji.
So I want to know: have you learned? Have you done? Have you trained yourself in these kind of healings, or it is from some trainer, from some guru, or it is the knowledge you've gained from the books?
Now, all that I learned is from, Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and of course, great teachers around like Maharishi Ramana Maharshi, Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans, Swami Vivekananda, Krishnamurti, all these great, Nisargadatta Maharaj. Whatever I learned, the goal was for me to first become a true human being, which is, on an ongoing journey, discover my truth. And through that itself, you develop the insight, the sensitivity to be able to heal others, maybe get the right intuition. This will work for this person, this will work for this person. So I've been blessed with a very good practice. I've been blessed with the love of our patients and people who are dependent and trust me. And so I did not go out. I did practice, try learning Reiki. I did
Okay.
some study in Ayurveda, a little bit of homeopathy. So I know a little bit of everything. I'll try homeopathic treatments when I need to for a patient, herbal treatment, holistic medicine. And then when I know that I've reached my limit as on Western medicine, I will go to people who are experts in certain subjects like acupuncture, acupressure. There are other doctors who do infusions of vitamins. There are other doctors who will do yoga, who will teach our patients yoga or cleansing, uh, almost like your Ayurvedic panchakarma. And the different you have to go by your sense what will work and where science, Western science helps, and where you have to try alternative approaches. And I use the help of others who are better in those fields than I am, and kind of it
It's
becomes a teamwork.
it's like holistic healing you give to your patients,
Gee, we
and
try.
you don't shy away from trying any of the modalities. Whichever will benefit the patient is good
That's it.
enough.
That's it. The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, true. So you are a doctor, practicing doctor, and you run a business also. You're an entrepreneur,
Gee,
and you write.
gee.
How do you get time to do all that?
I'm blessed, but one important thing in management is time management. Uh, One has to know how to use one's time. One has to delegate things, not try to do everything oneself. And then, more important than time management is even self management, how you handle yourself in front of others, how you approach others, because if you can motivate your team, and also importantly, do things that are your core uh, things, like do focus on your swadharma, as the Gita also says. Do fighting in your swadharma is more important than winning in someone else's dharma. So stay on my dharma. If others are better than I in certain things, say in operations, IT, processes, let them handle it. Delegate it. They can give me back the report what needs to be done. I don't need to do what they do. I'm not important. the work is more important. So
Yeah.
self management, putting one's ego aside, the moment you get rid of it, you start seeing things more clearly. A lot of
Mm,
my work is actually not done by me, it's done by
mm,
others. And
mm.
so I just stay quiet. If I get a new idea, I'll bring it to the team. If they like it, they have become so good, they'll take it and they'll run with it. And I just
Okay.
sit back quietly and let things unfold. And I help and mentor wherever needed. I love to
Mm,
write. I love to read. I've lived a quiet life, and wherever
mm,
once the obligations or dharma out external dharma is done, then I come back to myself, and I've been blessed with the ability to write, so it's not too difficult. It just flows
mm,
out. One has to be just quiet and it just flows out. So it's probably just blessings of Sri Aurobindo and Mother that works through.
mm. So between the medical literature you write and the poetry you do and the spiritualism and philosophy you write on, which is your most favorite? What do you love the most doing?
I think the most I love doing is reading Sri Aurobindo and Mother. I think that is the
Okay.
most. That is the source. That actually, when you read a great yogi or a Mahayogi, Mahaguru, then your mind also starts opening to different possibilities, and then new ideas come, whether it's business, whether it's writing, whether it's poetry. So that is, I think, if there is a yoga for me, I just love to be quiet and just absorb them. Just that is their writing. But this is not external writing, because yogis write from a deeper level. So when you
Yeah.
connect with the yogi when they're writing, you're actually connecting with that consciousness that the
Mm,
yogi has. So it's almost like connecting directly with Sri Aurobindo and Mother's awareness. And that immediately is transformative. One changes oneself, because the moment you're in presence of something great and beautiful, suddenly your awareness grows. And that is probably, I think that is the most beautiful thing. And when I write, I'm in touch. Connecting myself with him in writing. So it just becomes a part of that inner connection, inner journey.
So apart from Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and you talked about Ramakrishna and a couple of others, but are there any other spiritualists whom you read and follow? Like there is Yoganand Paramahansa, there is
Ji,
Lahiri Mahashay, there is
ji,
Yukteswar ji,
ji,
there is Swami Rama,
ji.
there is Shri M.
Ji, ji. So I used to read when I was in medical school. I used to read a lot. So I read
Hmm.
Swami Rama, his books. I think it was the Himalayan Institute. He's a very good
Yeah,
writer. And then,
yeah.
of course, the autobiography of a yogi, another very beautiful book. And then a lot of other writers. Krishnamurti had a lot of influence. The Buddha, I used to read him a lot. Zen was something that I connected with a lot. And Nisargadatta Maharaj was a great writer, Sri Ramana Maharshi. So they all, I learned from all of them. But I think the deepest connection, once you have a connection with a guru, then sometimes the guru will bring you other gurus to
Other,
work on you. And this is all,
true.
eventually it rises up to the same one universal light. But in that manifestation of that light, it presents in Sri Aurobindo in a different form, a different emphasis than Sri Ramakrishna or uh, Swami Rama in his own way. By the way, Swami Rama had gone and met Sri Aurobindo and wrote a very beautiful essay on him. So that those
Okay.
are things that we love a lot. I've read a lot of those, and I've learned from all of them.
Okay. Tell me one day in your life.
One day in my life, describe it. So this morning, I woke up, read Rig Veda a little bit, translated it. I'm trying to translate it into Hindi, which
Okay.
every day one mantra, which is it is for me also, and I'm hopefully someday it'll make life the Veda easy for everyone else, because our younger generation, even our generation, was never introduced to the Veda. So I translated the Vedas a little bit, few lines, wrote a little bit about it, then came to the office at about 8, saw patients. I did a few procedures. A patient had a lesion on the nose. Someone's shoulder was hurting. Did some procedures. Taught a young doctor who's a third-year resident. I taught him a little bit. Then there was a great literary figure from India who's here, so we're trying to help him. So I did help him with his visa, sitting with the legal people. Then 12 o'clock, I'm here, and then after 12, I think I have another meeting at 1 o'clock with another doctor. I'm going to try to help him get his practice together, and then we have a great festival, Awaken Florida, which is
Okay.
the Jaipur Lit Fest, which is one of the greatest, biggest lit fest in the world. They've come
Yeah.
here, so we are doing a healing festival with them, a festival
Okay.
of mind, body, and soul. So I'll go there, make sure all the arrangements are made for tomorrow, and then they're going to have a little celebration this evening, and that is my day. And evening, if I get a chance, then I'll go back to reading Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and if something inspires me, I'll write a little bit, and then
So
I
where's your,
exercise.
so where's your family?
Family is right here. So my
No,
wife is a
no.
doctor, and
Acha.
the children will be there, so they are part of it. They're beautiful, so they help me. Eldest daughter is in medical school, so she'll come tomorrow. She's not here. The younger son is doing real estate. He loves doing real estate, drone photography, so he'll do some photographs of real estate, and then we'll discuss. He wants to be a broker, he wants to sell it, he wants to buy it. And the younger one is studying in Tampa, the third daughter, the third child, who's a girl. She's 18. And then the youngest one is 14, and hopefully he'll come and we'll spend some time. But they're all grown up. They don't need me anymore. They're my parents now. They teach me.
Okay.
I know nothing if you ask.
Okay. So, Dr. Singh, as we come to an end of this
Yes.
interview, I thank you so much for imparting so much of knowledge to us, to me, to our viewers. I want you to give a message to the people out there. What would you say in a nutshell? Like anything about life, something which you feel strongly about, which people should follow?
I think, at least for everyone, I think if I have a message, is to follow the path of Ananda, find your Ananda and follow it. Um, and most of the time, I think that Anand comes from discovering who you are and what your Sadharma is. If that can be a message, I think that would be
Okay.
my message.
One more thing. What
Ji.
would be the right age to begin that?
Anytime, even before birth. The mothers can do that for their children. In fact, the mother says, from the mother from Pondicherry says, even before conception of your child, you should be preparing your child for a spiritual life. So, but then the mother and father who are going to be mother and father should be in that bhav, and it's not just a physical intercourse; it is a deep spiritual connection. That is what is our, vivaha in our Sanskriti means. And so it is important that we realize what our symbols are. And so, yeah, you can, if then you can invoke that kind of being in as your child, so the mother can conceive that child, and then through the pregnancy the mother can bring that consciousness. Mother's parents consciousness have a tremendous influence on the child's development. I cannot impress this, and we think, oh, it doesn't. Yes, it does. My grandfather, what he held within is coming out in me. How? It's a mystical connection, some psychological force. What he wanted from me, that comes to me very easily. And so you can train your child, not externally, but that deep aspiration that your child become of the highest possibility, and that the child help everyone and live a state of purity. If you have that bhav, then child will come up. So there is no age. I mean, and any right now is the age. Right now we can become adhyatmic. We just need to, turn our awareness to that which is beautiful and true in us.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for giving us your precious time. And I wish you all the best. Is there any other book coming?
Gee, I'm wanting to write a book on Sri Aurobindo and the Veda, so I'm working
Okay.
on it, and how he brought the Veda back to us. Swami Dayanand Saraswati kind of reopened it for us, and then Sri Aurobindo took it further and explained it. So that is my. Hopefully,
Okay.
I can do that soon.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. and wish you a very good day and very good experience at the Lit Fest that you have there.
Thank you, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. It's such a
Thank you
pleasure
so
talking
much.
to you, and
Yeah, same here.
thank you.
Same here. It was a pleasure reading your book. I never read Aurobindo earlier,
Yes,
but
yes.
I think I'm going to read him more now.
Gigi. We should introduce him to our younger generation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Acha, namaste.
Thank you. Namaskar, sir.